For decades, the military and our intelligence agencies, they've been obsessed with one thing, really, and that's the 3-pound universe sitting right inside your skull. So today, we're going to dive into the story of their secret quest to understand, influence, and even weaponize the incredible power of the human brain. Think about it, brain-to-brain communication, soldiers who never have to sleep, armies of robots controlled just by thinking. I mean, it sounds like total science fiction, right? Something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. But as we're about to find out, that line between sci-fi and actual national security, well, it's getting really, really blurry. All right, so let's get right into it. The first thing you really need to wrap your head around is this. The brain, your brain, has become a battlefield. Seriously. We're used to thinking about conflict on land, at sea, in the air, even in cyberspace. But now, the cognitive realm, the mind itself, is the new frontier for military and intelligence ops. And you can bet the stakes are just incredibly high. There's this quote from a bioethicist, Dr. Jonathan Marino, that just nails it. He says talking about this stuff is more sensitive than talking about atomic physics. Think about that. We debate the ethics of nukes, right? But when you start messing with the brain, you're messing with the very essence of who we are. It's an entirely different level of sensitive. So, as futuristic and cutting edge as all this might sound, this obsession with the mind is, well, it's not new at all. The neurotech boom we're seeing today is actually built on a really long and, frankly, often pretty dark history of governments trying to get inside our heads. You know that word brainwashing? It actually became a thing during the Korean War. All of a sudden, you had American POWs showing up on the radio saying all this treasonous stuff. And it just sent this massive shockwave of paranoia through Washington. The government became absolutely convinced that the communists had discovered some kind of secret mind control technique, and they were terrified they were falling behind. And this timeline really shows you how things just kept escalating. I mean, you start in the early 1900s with some, let's say, ethically dicey public health experiments. Then you have the absolute horror of the Nazi trials, which is where our modern rules for experiments even come from. And that leads right into the Cold War paranoia that gave us these secret CIA programs. It's just this long history of pushing the envelope, sometimes with absolutely tragic consequences, and it leads us straight to the tough questions we're asking today. Okay, so let's talk about the most infamous one of them all, Project MKUltra. To the CIA, LSD wasn't some counterculture party drug. No, they saw it as a potential weapon. They were asking all kinds of questions. Could it be a truth serum? Could we use it to make a captured scientist spill secrets about the atomic bomb? They ran these experiments on hundreds of Americans who had no idea what was happening. Soldiers, civilians, you name it. They were even dosing people in bars just to see what would happen. It's wild. So how do we get from that kind of creepy secret history to where we are today? Well, those old-school clandestine experiments, they've mostly been replaced by something way more subtle and, honestly, way more powerful. Now it's all about taking legitimate medical breakthroughs and quietly adapting them into military tools. And that brings us to this really critical idea you have to understand: dual-use technology. It basically means a technology isn't born good or evil. Its purpose can be flipped on a dime. So a discovery that helps someone with, say, a sleep disorder can be repurposed to create a super alert pilot who can fly for days. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, get this number: 35,000. That's how many people show up to the big annual meeting for the Society for Neuroscience. We're talking researchers, scientists, doctors. It's one of the biggest scientific conferences on the planet, a massive, massive engine for new discoveries. But here's the crazy part. The vast majority of those 35,000 scientists, they're working to cure things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. They're trying to help people. Most of them have absolutely no idea that an agency like DARPA is watching their research, cherry-picking it for potential military uses. There's this massive cultural gap between the lab and the battlefield. And the tools in this new toolkit are, well, they're pretty mind-blowing and very real. Take a drug called modafinil. It was made for people with narcolepsy, a sleep disorder. Now, the Air Force uses it to keep pilots awake and sharp for up to 80 hours straight. Or beta blockers, a super common heart medication. They're looking at them as a way to maybe inoculate a soldier against PTSD. And then there's oxytocin, the love hormone. People are exploring if you could turn that into a spray to make a detainee more cooperative. It's wild. And that brings up a really deep philosophical question, right? Do we want soldiers who can come home without feeling any guilt or shame for what they've had to do? If you can just chemically cut the wire between a memory and the emotion that goes with it, what does that do to our whole idea of morality in war? Is a soldier without guilt still completely human? And if you think that's out there, this next part takes it to a whole new level. We're moving into the next frontier, where the lines get even blurrier, linking the human brain directly to a machine. We're not just talking about pills and chemicals anymore. This is about creating a genuine mind-machine team. So, how does this even work? Well, there's this classic experiment with a monkey that just explains it perfectly. So, step 1. You train a monkey to move a cursor with a joystick. Simple enough. But while it's doing that, tiny electrodes are reading its brain, specifically the signal for the intent to move the stick. Then, those brain signals get beamed wirelessly to a totally separate robot arm. And pretty soon, the monkey has this incredible aha moment. It realizes it doesn't even need to touch the joystick anymore. It can move the robot arm just by thinking. And the end goal for the military? It's to create this totally seamless, intuitive connection. Imagine this, a soldier sitting safely in a bunker somewhere in Colorado, but they feel like they are literally inside the skin of a robot that's thousands of miles away, controlling it not with a keyboard or a joystick, but like it's their own body. But again, here's that dual-use thing popping up. The same military-funded research is leading to some amazing medical advances. I mean, we're now developing prosthetic limbs for amputees that can be controlled by thought. And get this, they can even send signals back to the brain, giving the person a real sense of touch. It's just incredible. Okay, so when you put it all together, the power to boost performance, to dial down emotions, to literally merge our minds with machines, it's clear we are standing at a crossroads, and we have to start asking some really, really big ethical questions about the kind of future we're building here. And what's really interesting here is that this isn't a simple left versus right issue. The concerns come from all over the political map. Broadly speaking, you have folks on the left who are worried about fairness. Will this create a new class of the super enhanced, leaving the poor behind? Will people be exploited? Then, on the other side, you have folks on the right who worry about what this does to human dignity. Are we playing God? Are we tampering with something fundamental and heading towards some kind of post-human future? And that brings us to this huge geopolitical question. I mean, if a country can wage war with robots controlled from thousands of miles away, if you take your own soldiers out of harm's way, does that lower the bar for going to war in the first place? When war starts to feel more like a video game, do you become more likely to press start? And I think ultimately, it all boils down to this one final question. In this race to build the perfect soldier, someone stronger, faster, who never gets tired and maybe doesn't feel the trauma of war, at what point do we cross a line? At what point do we accidentally engineer our own humanity right out of the picture? That's the really big question that I think we all need to start thinking about.